Thursday, February 7. Oh, I'm going to start that again. The time is 7:22 p.m. on Thursday, February 17, 2022. I'd like to call this Community Advisory Committee meeting in order. Our first order of business is the appointment of the chair and vice chair. With the committee's consent, we may deal with each of the two chair appointments separately. Are there any nominations for the position of chair for 2022 of the Community Advisory Committee? Members can nominate themselves as well. Sarah?
Yeah, I would like to nominate myself again.
Okay, and is there anyone else that would like to? Okay.
I believe that we had somebody who had put their name in remotely who's not attending tonight.
Was it Laura?
Yeah.
Okay. So if Laura is not here today, do we still go ahead with this or do we wait till she's able to join us?
Linda, do you want to take that?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
We theoretically would have to take the vote on the nominations in the order that they were received. So Laura's was received first. So we should, and then we vote on them until there's a majority.
Okay.
Vote. The majority of the committee agrees on the position.
Okay, so if I say if Laura was received first, so Laura's not here to accept the nomination, but I'm assuming because she put herself forward, we'll just surpass that and say she's accepted that nomination.
Right.
May I have a mover and a seconder for this motion? Oh wait, do I have to do a vote first, Linda?
You would, Madam Chair, you would need a mover and seconder to put her name
forward. Okay,
forward, yes.
So let's do that first. A mover and a seconder, please, to put her name forward. Shivangi and Jeanette. And what I'm going to request now is those in favor of having Laura as chair.
I think it's someone new.
Okay, that's the majority. So
sorry, how many were for?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, and 2. Anyone against, I guess we would say. No. So
Then that would carry.
okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm not used to doing this part of it, right? So Laura has been elected as the chair for the year of 2022 of the Community Advisory Committee. Can I have this moved by someone? Shivangi, and seconded by Sarah. All in favor? Is anyone opposed? Perfect, motion carries. The elected chair is to assume the chair position, but the elected chair is not here. So let's elect a vice chair and maybe they can take over. So would anyone like to nominate or nominate themselves as a vice chair? So we have Sarah. May I have a mover and seconder to that nomination? Jeanette and Shivangi. All those in favor of Sarah as a nomination? So I think that's everyone. Can that be moved by someone and seconded? So I guess I'll move it. Can I move it? And then Shivangi seconded. Is it all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. And Sarah, as the vice chair, I would ask that you now take over the meeting.
Yes, that's me then. Thank you so much, Valkyrie, for your 2 years of service. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Bobby. Yes.
So we'll move on to section 2, the approval of the agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? I see Balpreet and Janet. Thank you. Moved by Balpreet, seconded by Janet. Any questions or comments on the agenda? I'll take that as no comments or questions. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That looks across the board. All right, all opposed? Nope, that would be nobody since everybody had said yes, so that carries. We'll move on to number 3, declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I think that we don't have any. We would have had those recorded earlier. Thank you so much. Receipt of the minutes. May I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of November 18th, 2021? Balpreet and Councillor Humphreys, thank you so much. Were there any questions or comments on the minutes? I'm seeing head shakes. So I'll call the vote. All in favor of receiving the meeting minutes? That looks across the board. Any opposed? I don't see any opposed, so that carries. Number 5, delegations. We have no delegations this evening. That feels unusual. Matters for consideration. Okay, so hang on just here. I've got to move to the last page of the script for the guidance on managing this. We need a mover and a seconder to put an item on the floor for discussion. Sorry.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
If you could just go back to page 3 and then the item 6.1, we'll be starting. Yeah, we'll be starting with the presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll be moving to 6.1, memorandum for the manager of recreation regarding the SARC Gymnasium Edition, the project update. And first we have a presentation by Lisa Worth, our manager of recreation. Lisa, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm just going to share my screen here and pull up a short PowerPoint. There it is. And talk about this exciting project. So the town is embarking on a gymnasium addition to the existing SARC community center. This gymnasium was actually identified in the 2016 Parks and Rec Master Plan, but even prior to that, it was always identified to be a space at the SARC right from when the SARC was designed and built, sort of back in 2003, 2004. So there was always a plan to have a gymnasium as a part of that facility. And then as time went on, and again, the master plan was done, it was identified that, yes, we really do need this space as a part of the existing community center. So it was approved as part of the 2021 budget deliberations with an overall budget of about 8.2 million. So staff were directed to start that project, the design and tendering and construction, along with community consultation and making sure that happened before the final designs and that type of thing were done for the gymnasium. Through our procurement process, we engaged an architecture firm called CSMP. They do lots of projects, but they've done lots of gymnasiums. They've done lots of municipal gymnasiums, lots of institutional gymnasiums in schools and universities and that type of thing. So they have lots of experience in terms of designing gymnasium spaces. And then work began in earnest in November 2022. So just to sort of show you the existing site and where the gymnasium is going to go, this is the SARC from the southwest. So it's going in this corner here. So this is the pool and the arena's up here. This corridor is the pool, change rooms. So this is the space where the addition will go. And this just shows you what it looks like in relation to the inside of the building. So again, this is the space where it will go, pool change rooms, pool, arenas up here, preschool toddler room over here in the purple, administration, customer service office here in the green. So as I mentioned, we embarked on a fairly thorough community consultation process during November and December. And we held four Zoom sessions overall with organizations, potential user groups, special interest groups, that type of thing. And then we did some written surveys for organizations that were unable to attend the meetings. And during those meetings, we talked about the uses of the gymnasium, what size they would like to see, spectator seating, lighting, windows, acoustics, change rooms and showers and spectator viewing and all sorts of things. And we gleaned some excellent information from those consultations. What came out was that there was a strong desire for a double gymnasium because it allows for formal competition use and tournament use, along with the more general uses of fitness classes and sports programs and sports leagues and basketball and summer camp and children's programs, a whole plethora of programming in a space like a gymnasium, special events, trade shows, fairs, that type of thing. And a double, like I said, a double gymnasium it would allow for the sports clubs to run bigger, more formal tournaments and competitions. And we did present that option to council, and we're not going to be going forward with the double gymnasium, and we are going to stick with the original plan of a single gymnasium. A double gymnasium does not fit well on the site, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. Even the single is a fairly tight squeeze in that space, and obviously a double gymnasium comes with a much larger budget, obviously, than a single gymnasium. But we did present that option to council earlier this month. We felt it was important that they knew what we heard in the community consultations. So we are going to go ahead with the single gymnasium design. It will have a divider wall curtain, so it could allow for two different groups to use the space at the same time, depending on what those activities are. And we did a little bit of research around the existing gymnasiums in town, including the schools. Many of them are very booked up. Getting into school gymnasiums can be difficult for community groups. They are, again, very booked up. Some of them are not suitable for certain activities. They're too small. The ceiling height is too low. It may not have the spectator space required. And the school boards are increasing their rental fees. I believe it was the Catholic board just before COVID increased their fee about 40%. Just as their hourly rental fee for community groups to use the spaces. So they're becoming a little bit pricey for some community groups. The other thing we find, and even we find this internally in recreation, because we also rent space in gymnasium schools right now, is that it's the schools will always get priority use. So even if we have a permit for a school at 7 p.m. every Tuesday night for a 10-week children's program, it's been our experience that the school could call us the day before or the same day and say, oh, we need the gymnasium tonight, you don't have access. And that means we then have to go and make sure that we call all of the participants or contact all of the participants in that program and let them know that, you know, there is no program that night. And then we need to figure out, are we going to, you know, extend the program and the administration of refunds. And we actually find that that's happening. Our experience has been it's happening quite frequently. So having another municipal gymnasium just allows for a little bit better control in terms of rental and booking and permitting and that type of thing. The town does own and operate one other gym at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, and it is very well used during prime time, weekends, evenings, you know, right from after school, sort of 4 o'clock onwards. There are some times during the day where, you know, mid-afternoon, the gymnasium is empty, and we are looking at ways to fill that use. We definitely have interest in seniors programming in there during the day. And prior to COVID, we were looking at working with some homeschooling groups where families could bring their children into the gymnasium and have a bit of a gym class in the gymnasium as part of their school, their homeschooling. So the gymnasium at the Leisure Complex is very well used during prime time. So the current design is sitting at a single 8,400 square foot gymnasium with a 24-foot ceiling height. The 24 feet is the minimum that would be suitable for volleyball and basketball. Ideally, they would actually like a 30-foot ceiling height. If we were going with the double gymnasium that was going to be used for tournaments and more formal competition, it would actually be a 30-foot ceiling height, but 24 feet is suitable and will work for the groups that we consulted with. And it also includes storage space, some change rooms, washrooms, spectator space, and there is a small multi-purpose room being added on to the preschool room that I showed you just a minute ago, and then some renovations to the existing customer service and administration space. It's not very functional at this time, and we've learned through COVID and the way that we've set up what we're calling our greeter desk right now, more toward the front of the building. It just makes for a better experience for people coming in the building. And then we're looking at a separate corridor for access from the lobby. We are in the process of refining this design at this point. It may not be a separate corridor. It may be the same corridor as the pool change rooms, and the gym would just be an addition on. So we are still refining exactly what this will look like. This is very high level, and we need to make sure that we stay within budget. Obviously, that's an important consideration. So there will likely be some minor tweaks to some of this space. So the gym will look like a typical gymnasium. I know there's a lot of colored lines here, but just sort of wanted to show you how it would be laid out. So the black line here is the full court basketball court. And then the blue line just inside, keep losing my cursor here. Where am I? There is the full court volleyball. The yellow is the practice volleyball. So they're orientated the other, like the sort of left to right here as opposed to up and down. So one volleyball here, one volleyball here. The red is pickleball. So it allows for 3 pickleball courts. So 1, 2, 3 here, and white, which you can't see. Sorry, red is badminton. My apologies. 3 badminton courts, which are the red lines, and then white, which is just inside. You really can't see them, but they're just inside the red badminton lines. Those would be pickleball. So again, it allows for 3 pickleball courts at the same time. So lots of good, a good use, a good variety. Runoff space, very important for safety, about 8 to 10 feet, depending on which wall you're looking at. But again, very important for safety as those balls, bounce out of bounds and players sort of go after them. We are refining our spectator seating. This is spectator seating here. It's retractable bleachers at this point, but we are refining that. Interestingly, most of the sports clubs told us they don't need a lot of spectator seating, especially if it's a single gymnasium and it's really just going to be used for practice and recreational type games. If it's not going to be used for formal competition tournament, not a huge need for spectator space. So again, this is one of the things we're considering, excuse me, refining, just sort of in the interest of making sure we stay on budget. So we're not quite sure what that'll look like, but these are retractable bleachers. And when there is spectator seating required in the gymnasium, we can always bring in benches or chairs. This is what we do at the leisure complex. Currently, they don't have any kind of bleacher system at this time. So that's, again, basically what the lines would look like. And then the divider curtain wall going through the middle of the gymnasium. So the site, in more detail, this is what it looks like on the existing site. So here's the single gymnasium oriented north-south, and then this corridor that's got change rooms, washrooms, storage. An important consideration for this site is that there are some floodplains and some significantly provincially significant wetland here. This purple line is wetlands. And the edge of the building is supposed to be 30 meters away from the wetland. This black line here is 30 meters from the edge of the building. So you can see there is a little bit of encroachment onto the wetlands. But we have had preliminary conversation with Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, and they've indicated that they don't see this as being a major issue. There wouldn't be a lot of rehabilitation or remediation required because of this. And again, because we are still refining this, we're hoping to shrink the footprint a little bit and perhaps lessen the encroachment into this little piece of wetland down here. This is the little multi-purpose room I was mentioning. These two rooms are existing. They're what we call our preschool toddler room. We are going to be doing some renovations to make them a little bit more multi-purpose. They're very large spaces. They're excellent multi-purpose spaces, but have always been dedicated to our preschool multi-purpose, preschool toddler programs, but they do have much more potential. So we need to do a little bit of retrofit, and we would like to add a divider curtain and that type of thing. And then add an additional multi-purpose space onto there, again, to just allows for more programming and flexibility. And then this is the existing customer service administration space within the building, and we're proposing some renovation to that space. And we're proposing building a new customer service counter more toward the front of the building. This is the entrance to the building here. This is the pool here. As I said, we learned during COVID that it's nice to have that customer service function at the front of the building, so when people come in, they can be greeted and get their questions answered right away. This space here is an existing meeting room that was well used. When we pulled reports pre-COVID in terms of annual use, it was about 2,000 hours over a year. So the programming that was in that space will move to this new multi-purpose space here. So we're not actually seeing a net gain in multi-purpose space, but we're not losing any space, and we end up with a much more functional, welcoming customer service space. I mentioned a little bit about the site fit challenge. The whole site, well, the majority of the site is within the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority and encroaches slightly on some of that setbacks. So there will be some considerations and some studies required, but again, Lake Simcoe has indicated that they don't see any major issues or major remediation required. And as I mentioned, we are trying to shrink the footprint a little bit to minimize that encroachment as much as possible. There's also a sloping grade, so it's going to require some ramps and some creative engineering in terms of emergency exits and that type of thing. So it's just a sort of a design challenge that we need to keep in mind for that space. As I mentioned, the majority of the site and the majority of this existing center sits within the the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. That's this blue line here. That is considered a floodplain. So again, just something to keep in mind with design and making sure that we do the proper studies, so we're not doing any damage, and making sure that remediation and anything that needs to be done around that is done. So, in conclusion, we did look at a number of options. As I mentioned, we looked at a double gymnasium, and we looked at some other options around how the single gymnasium and the double gymnasium were laid out in the space, and that type of thing. Generally, we know there is a lack of gymnasium space in Aurora. I mentioned the schools are very booked up and can be difficult to get into, and again, with those cancellations and that type of thing, sometimes a little bit frustrating for community groups who are looking for a space to run a program every week and not have to worry about getting a call from the school the day of saying, you can't have your gym space tonight. And at the end of the day, we're always looking for new facilities to be able to offer new programming and get as much participation as we can in the community. So this gymnasium will be very well utilized. We are working on a business plan right now, just in terms of what the daily usage will look like between sort of what the town will use it for and the programs the town will offer for the community, but also what the sports groups and other clubs in the community might want to use it for. So we're really looking forward to this new space, especially a space as large as a gymnasium and a space that is as flexible as a gymnasium, because there really is a lot of possibilities. It's not just sport. It can be fitness classes and children's programs and preschool programs and special events. So there's a lot of potential for this space, and we're pretty excited. So as I mentioned, we are just refining the design and hoping to be able to prepare the tender documents in the next few months. We do need to go back to council with the final design and a more refined budget number at that point. And then as soon as we do that, we will tender the project, hoping to have it complete probably toward the end of 2023 at this point, late fall 2023. So that's where we are at with this project. So happy to take any questions. So I see Shivanji and Janet. So Shivanji.
Excuse me, Sarah,
you're
your
on
microphone.
mute.
My apologies. Shall we go with Janet first and then Shivanji second? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. That was a good presentation. Lots of details in there. I do have a couple of questions. As part of this committee, we had a couple of years back a presentation given on a new pool, and so that hopefully at some point in the future that will come in. So just some questions wrapped around any design changes, particularly when you were talking about the changes in at the front, and whether that will be taking into account whatever potential future design if another pool is paired with that facility. And just want to say, as part of that, I know that current meeting room is not great as a meeting room. The echo and stuff is terrible. So that's actually fantastic that that will be moved into the back. I really like the idea of that check-in for everybody being pulled forward. It doesn't work well. You're right, where right now there's the one check-in and then the other down for the pool. But maybe if you could speak to that a bit, though, of how that could work for the future pool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, as you know, we did that quite an extensive aquatic feasibility study. So that project is, so in order to do that project, we need to purchase existing land on Wellington because the pool would go in the parking lot essentially. And then we would need the existing lands to expand the parking lot. So there's a much bigger budget discussion required for that. But that's what would happen is that the pool would be built in the parking lot, and then lands would have to be acquired to expand the parking lot to the east, I guess it would be. So that's where we're at with that, Janet. That's really all I can tell you. There hasn't been a lot of discussion about that project. The gymnasium was actually tabled prior to the pool. So sort of in the, the long-term plan of things, the gymnasium was identified to be constructed first anyway.
Yeah, and as you may be aware, there's more digging going around anyhow with like investigation with the whole aquatics thing of whether that would potentially be something that becomes regional and has some other components and things.
Yes,
with
the wellness center.
Right, with the wellness center and everything. So really just wanting to ensure that any changes that are putting in for the gym could fit into any future design. So I'm glad to see that there wasn't like your admin space is really related just to the gymnasium and then the relocation, correct?
The admin space is so it's for staff. So if we were able to go ahead with the pool expansion, it would likely, the way we're building it for growth. So if new staff that will be brought on as a result of the pool expansion would be housed in that admin space as well, which would be okay. It really isn't that far away from, it wouldn't be that far from the pool. But you're right, like having the customer service counter there, even with a pool addition, would still be a central location for entering. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Can we please move to Shivangi next?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just have two quick questions for Lisa. One, can you share what the budget is for this extension? And then the second.
Sorry. No, go ahead. Ask your second question. Sorry.
No, you're good. My second question was, you'd mentioned that the this area or gym will be extended out to other sports groups outside of the city-run sports, and I'm assuming there'll be some charge for these groups. And is the plan there that would recover some of the costs over a period of time? Is that what the intent or plan is? No.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, the existing budget is 8.2 million for the project. And yes, so user groups would be just like any other municipal facility, they would be charged an hourly rental rate. And we haven't determined what that rate is yet. And we haven't determined the allocation policy either yet, where, we decide who gets how many hours per week, because we are already just from the conversations that we've had, we know there's going to be a lot of demand for this space. So we do need to work on the allocation policy, the hourly rental rate. And I've mentioned we are working on a business plan. So the business plan will identify what the revenue recoveries would be on an annual basis. And it also identifies the operating costs, because obviously with any new space comes additional operating, heating, cleaning, staffing required to set it up, and that type of thing. So yes, there would be a user fee, and it would go towards covering the operating costs of that space. And we are doing that study right now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to share with the committee that this is quite a positive enhancement for our town. It's a great need for gymnasiums, that's for sure, as Lisa mentioned. And I think it'll go a super long way in trying to, I guess, get closer to the deficit of lack of facilities for our town and our residents, and the needs for sure. And one of the things I'm excited about is, you know, it's the location is sort of, it's almost, I think, one of the best sites for us to add this for sure, with the most minimal impact. It is pricey, absolutely. But I think, you know, in terms of what we're going to get and the payback for our residents is really important. I wish we could have done the double gymnasium for sure. We just couldn't work this time, but I'm sure that it's not going to stop staff from continuing to look and see what else we can do for sure. But I think we're heading in the right direction. I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing this come to fruition a lot sooner than later. But just wanted to share that it was well received at council when initially it was this discussion, and we're going to look forward to hearing the feedback of our committee here as well, to make sure that hopefully we're all in positive about it anyways. But thank you very much. That's all. I just wanted to add those comments. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Dennis, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I noticed, Lisa, with regards to your final slide, you make the point that there's a lack of competition in tournament use space. I just wanted to confirm, does the single gym design address that? Or what? Yeah, I guess, does the single gym design address that?
It addresses it to some degree for some sports. So it
Okay.
does allow for a full court basketball game. So basketball has told us that they can run, a formal game. The problem, so they could run a proper competitive game. They've told us they wouldn't run a tournament because it's only one court. So they typically sort of like to have teams warming up on one court while a game is going on. And so yes, for basketball, it would. For volleyball, it would not. The 24-foot ceiling is not high enough. They need a 30-foot ceiling for proper, like, sanctioned tournament game. But volleyball is very excited to be able to run practices and recreational games as well. And certainly from a rec perspective, for the programs that the town is offering, volleyball is one of our most popular recreation programs, and it's one of the programs that we are renting school gymnasiums for quite a bit on a regular weekly basis. So it'll work for some sports. It would work for karate tournaments. We did talk to karate. It would work for karate. It will not work for baton. Again, the ceiling is too low. So it will work. It'll work. It would work for badminton. So yeah, it'll work for some of them, but not a proper, like, invitational tournament where you would see teams invited from out of town and that rotating schedule of ongoing games.
No, that's great. Thank you. That kind of adds to, I guess, the use case that I'm trying to picture in my mind. Thank you also for your description. My second question was kind of along those lines of, could you just give us a flavor or an idea of the list of groups that you consulted?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job. Were there any others? Like, I'm assuming it was the senior center that suggested pickleball, but maybe I'm just being ageist there.
Yeah, no, we did. We consulted with the senior center, a couple of different basketball clubs, volleyball, baton, badminton. We also consulted with some special user groups more to find out about their needs around privacy. And so like we consulted with the New Immigrants Center because we wanted to know, like, if we wanted to get new immigrants to come into the facility and use the space, what would make them feel comfortable. So privacy and, you know, blinds and making sure that people can't see in, making sure that change rooms are secure, those types of things. So we did consult with them. We did consult with Special Olympics. And we also consulted, we had some feedback from some non-traditional gym users, but groups that would use the gym for dryland training. So hockey, swimming provided comments to use the space for fitness and dryland training. And
Okay,
I think
great.
that's the majority of our groups. Yeah.
That sounds great to hear, like that wholesome consultation from all walks of life in Aurora. And I guess my last question is, I'm not sure if this is premature, but can you give some idea of how this project will affect existing services during the construction of it? Is this something where we have to close down, or will we be working around services?
That's an excellent question. It depends on whether we go with a second corridor to the gymnasium or not. If we go with a second corridor from the lobby of the SARC, from the existing lobby to the gymnasium, there will be almost no disruption. It can really be done in isolation. There may be the odd disruption where utilities need to be linked, or we do know the gas line needs to be relocated. So there would be a closure for that. If we end up using the existing corridor that leads to the pool change rooms, there would be quite a disruption to the pool use. So if change rooms aren't available, the pool can't really be in use. And that's exactly what we're investigating right now, is we're trying to figure out, you know, the cost benefit of that second corridor versus a lengthy closure of the pool. But it could be a 3 to 6 month closure of the pool if it's a shared corridor. It would not affect the arenas. The arenas, again, unless there's the odd day where they need to shut off the gas or the water for something, and that would be very early on in the project. So we have, you know, one of the first things we said to the consultants was we wanted as minimal disruption to the existing use of the building as possible. But it all depends on how the gymnasium addition gets hooked on to the existing building, so to speak. If we go with a separate corridor, there will be minimal disruption. If it ends up being the existing corridor, there will be a lengthy closure of the pool. Yeah, we don't know which way we're going yet.
Right. Details to follow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And Balpreet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of my questions was the parking spaces taken into consideration as well? You know, because I know when both hockey rinks are in use and the swimming pool's in use, the parking there can become, and getting in and out of the place can be a challenge.
So there was sort of an informal parking study done by the consultants. And at this point, they have determined that there is sufficient parking and there would not be additional parking required, even with the addition of the gymnasium. The other thing we can do to mitigate potential parking issues is the way we program. So if there was a large event in the gymnasium, like a fair or something, where like a home show type of event where, you know, there could be 400 people, we would not book large event on the ice or in the pool, or we wouldn't book anything in the pool. So we've talked about juggling that programming to make sure that all three major amenities in that facility are not booked with large uses on the same day to ensure that there is sufficient parking. But the initial scan of parking does show that it is sufficient what we've got there, even with the addition of a gymnasium.
And you mentioned the infringement onto that, what do you call it? The water.
The wetland,
Yeah, how much actually is that?
Oh, we don't know yet. That's a
Okay.
study that still needs to be done. There are a number of environmental studies that need to be done, and they can't actually do it right now because of the snow. Like, they physically need to go out and measure. So they can't actually do that right now. But based on the map and what we've shown LRSCA, they don't anticipate an issue. It looks like it's probably going to be a couple of meters or so, but we don't, that is one of the studies that does still need to be done.
Okay.
In the next couple months. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I believe everybody's had a turn to go. I've got a couple people here with additional questions. However, I will take my opportunity now to go. First of all, you talked about it being in use for summer camps. And one of the things that when my daughter was at summer camp at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex in that gymnasium, the exit to outside was definitely a hindrance when you're dealing with little children. And so I'm wondering if the exit to outside for summer camp usage is more than just an emergency exit, but something that is a little bit more thoughtful and planned for children to be able to move to that outside space as part of their programming. Because I know that outdoor programming is something that summer camps are trying to integrate as much as possible into their work. So that's my first question. Do you want to do this answer and then, or would you like all of the questions?
Maybe I will, just so I don't sort of forget. Okay. So the exits are still being examined. They are challenging because of the grade. So the engineers and the consultants are still figuring out what that will look like, because it likely will be, it needs to be accessible. So that's one issue, that's one big consideration. So I can't really answer your question at this point, because they are still under investigation and they are still determining what those will look like. What might happen in the case of summer camp is that we may not use the exit out of the gym. We may bring the kids and use the exit. There's an exit at the back of the toddler room through the existing sensory hallway. Yeah. So depending on what those exits end up looking like, it will determine how we route younger children through the building. But I can't really give you specifics on that quite yet.
Okay. So that actually brings me to my next question, and that is, when you're talking about the preschool program space being used for bookings, I have had the privilege of attending a couple of birthday parties that were hosted at the SARC, and they were hosted in that one meeting room. And the idea of them being able to be hosted in a multi-use space that is also used for preschool makes a lot of sense. There's a real synergy there to be found. And I hope that that continues in terms of booking, because I know a lot of families would be very happy to be able to do that. So I just want to put that out there as a really good idea. Bellpreet had a really great question about that parking situation. And it's not so much about the amount of spaces that are possible. It's often about the ingress and egress from the parking lot. So oftentimes when we have used it, there has been a backup of 8 to 10 cars to exit the lot, which causes a lot of congestion that you can't get through when you're trying to get into park. And so perhaps the town could look at some kind of traffic movement onto Wellington there in order to mitigate that from happening. I don't think it's a matter of not enough spaces. I think it's a matter of how you're managing that ingress and egress. Because sometimes you can wait a very long time to exit that parking lot. I know I have myself many, many times. So those are my parts that I wanted to talk about. And I have 3 people who have raised their hands again. So I think I'd like to just check in and see if they would still like to speak. So I saw Janet, Shivanji, and Dennis with hands up. So I think I'll take it in that order.
Okay, so Lisa, I just wanted to ask, when you said there was a potential of a pool closure for 3 to 6 months, depending on what was done with the corridor, is there a possibility, if they go that route, of allowing entrance to the pool? You know, when you first walk in the building, if you turn left, you can get into the pool from there. We have had a couple of masters practices where I think it was probably when they were going to do the big home show. So things were closed off, or I'm not sure if that was the time where we went in that entrance. You had to leave your boots on deck, of course, like in that hall. And then you could get in and use the change rooms. So there is a way that, so maybe something could be looked at there.
Yeah, there could be. I don't think that would work for all of the aquatic programming, but you're right. If we could keep it open for the smaller groups, I mean, obviously we don't want any kind of disruption or shutdown, but you know, when you're looking at sort of those large time where we've got group lessons one after the other, we probably it wouldn't be safe to route all those people to the change rooms through the deck. But I think for some of this, like you said, the swim practices, some of the lane swims, some of the smaller aquafit classes, we may be able to route people that way as well. So we'll definitely look at, once we know a little bit more about that shutdown.
There might even be a way that you might not, as you said, you might not be able to have all the user groups in, but you might be able to still be running the big pool, and you could route the traffic around. Well, they had the COVID protocol after that first lockdown. When they first opened up, there was a lot of programming that had been done to figure out one-way movement around, and it worked, and it did work. So they can probably come up with some creative solutions if they needed to be able to keep the vast majority of the programming running, if they needed to. So it was just to
no, that's a good point. We'll definitely look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll move on to Shivanji next.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question on, you mentioned earlier, Lisa, about the height, 24 versus 30 for a lot of other like volleyball type events. Is there a significant price cost to going up 6 inches or meters?
There is. My understanding is that I don't have that number off the top of my head, but there is, and it affects the whole engineering of the space, and it affects the engineering of the snow load, and it affects like the sight lines from the road and that type of thing. So my understanding is there is quite a budget difference, and I guess the balance is the groups, we really only need that 30 foot height for tournaments and that type of thing. And the groups have already told us if it's not a double gym, they wouldn't use it for that. So I'm not sure in a single gym how often that 30 foot height would be required. But it is, with the engineers and the consultants preliminary have told us it is quite an expense, and there's a lot of consideration that needs to go in to snow loading and that type of thing on a roof that's that high. And for the minimal use that it would probably get in as a single gymnasium, like the minimal use that a ceiling height that high would get in a single gym, it's that balance of, do we invest in it or not, sort of thing. But that's my preliminary understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dennis, you had raised your hand a second time. Are you still interested in asking questions?
No, that was frozen shoulder. I am good, thank you.
Do we have further comments or questions for Ms. Worth? Thank you so much. May I have Oh boy. I have just clicked something that was not supposed to be clicked, of course. I lost my script. So here, hang on. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll call the vote. May I have all in favor? I see that as a unanimous. So I'm going to say all opposed. All right, that carries. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you so much, Ms. Worth. It was very, very wonderful to hear your presentation.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And we will move on to number 7, informational items, the Community Advisory Committee update list. May I have a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? I see Shivanji and Balpreet. Thank you so much. Number 1, that the Community Advisory Committee update list be received for information. Would staff like to speak to the item?
I just wanted to say thank you. It's something we've requested for a while, and it was kind of really nice to kind of go through it and see, you know, where our voices were heard and where the plan or the process is at. So much appreciated.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you very much, Balpreet, for bringing this to my attention. And our legislative services team put this together, and we will be updating on a regular basis bi-monthly. And if you want any information, the links are all in the table, so you can link any of the reports that went forward and the recommendations that were carried, and yeah, all the reports are viewable through those links.
Are there any further comments from the committee about this? Questions? Not seeing any hands up. I will just add my own piece here. This is something that I started asking about when I was the chair in the first round of this committee, because it felt like we were giving feedback and it was just going into the ether, and we had no idea what was being done with it, and we had no idea how it was being received or used. So it's so nice to have some kind of information coming back to us, and it feels like maybe we're not just the rubber stamp that we were made to feel that we were. So thank you so much. Are there any further comments? No. Okay. I'll call a vote. May I have all those in favor? Looks unanimous. So all those opposed? No, I'm going to guess that's going to be a no, and then that carries. Thank you so much. Okay. I believe that we have come to the end of our meeting, and we're going to go for adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? Balpreet and Shivanji, thank you so much. All in favor? All right. All opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been wonderful to see you again this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.